guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's December 23rd. I am feeling so lazy today. It's a blizzard here in Minnesota and I am just like cozy and I've been catching up on shows and I was like, I don't want to work. And then I was like, I want to talk about this though because I just finished watching last night's episode of Welcome to Plathville and I had a lot of thoughts about things. And I haven't been doing the best at keeping you guys updated throughout this season, but last night's episode was definitely one to remember. And it all comes down to two separate events. One is that Lydia Plath got a makeover by Mariah and Ethan and Olivia went to Los Angeles. Before we get into it, can you do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button down here. And if you'd like to be notified of when content loads or new uploads happen, make sure you turn the notifications on and set them to all. Okay, so last night there was an episode, it was actually the 7th episode of the season of Welcome to Plathville, and it was an interesting one because we have seen this season be a little bit different than before. The family is very divided, and we're seeing a lot less of Kim and Barry Plath, and that's probably not a bad thing because the two of them offer, in my opinion, very little to the storyline, and the true stars of this show are the kids and how they are sort of branching out on their own and finding their life outside of their parents and sort of finding a way from that very sheltered world into the world of modern living. So last night's episode, we actually saw Lydia Plath sit down with her mom, Kim, and talk about how she had a crush on this boy and had considered wanting to date him, but then had talked with God or prayed to God and decided that this was not the right fit for her. Kim and her sort of talked about how she was very young. She didn't have to do anything. Kim even admitted to her that, she had 4 ex-boyfriends that were at her wedding and told Lydia, you don't have to do what Daddy and I did. You don't have to be like us. I always find it ironic that the parents that are the most strict are the ones that happen to be those that had a life before all of this. So Kim and Barry had the ability to experience life, date, and do whatever they wanted, and yet they don't allow the same courtesy to their children. Kim and Barry's experiences have helped bring them to a point in their lives where they understand how to work in the world, but their children don't have that same luxury. I digress. Back to the whole Lydia situation. After meeting with her mom, Lydia actually goes over to Mariah's house. So Mariah is living now with her brother, Micah. Micah has been modeling, and part of the episode is sort of talking about how Micah is putting a lot of his effort into fitness. He wants to travel and see the world. He wants to model. He doesn't want to be stuck in Cairo, and he wants to go outside of that very small town world. Mariah, who in her last week's episode got back together with her boyfriend, Max, and they had shared their first kiss. Actually, we don't see Max in this episode. Instead, we see Mariah meeting up with Lydia and having Lydia over at her house. Now, Lydia and Mariah are two very different young girls. Lydia is more conservative, and she has really held on to a lot of the same beliefs that her parents have instilled in her about purity, modesty, all of those, independent fundamentalist Baptist beliefs or that quiverful mindset about women being modest, meek, and submissive. Lydia prefers to dress very modestly. Mariah is very on the opposite end of that, though there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Mariah is more of the type that likes to wear short shorts, crop tops, tank tops, tight tops, really sort of this opposite world that she grew up in. She lives and looks more like a 20-year-old, 18-year-old that's in modern day 2020. She dresses a lot like a lot of the kids do on TikTok. She just looks like a normal 18-year-old if you ask me. She likes makeup, she likes heels, she likes to be girly. So when she had Lydia over at her house, she decided that she wanted to have Lydia try on her clothing. And Lydia did try on, was a good sport, but you could tell that Lydia was extremely uncomfortable during this sort of scene. She tried on a few of the dresses, eventually trying to cover herself up. And while she believed a lot of the dresses were a lot more exposed too much of her, they were actually relatively modest dresses if you were to look at what Mariah wears a lot of the time. These were dresses that just come up above the knee. They had necklines that weren't super low, and overall, she looked really cute. She looked very age appropriate. She looked like a 16-year-old girl. Now, Lydia was uncomfortable in this, but Mariah sort of pushed her and Lydia played along with it. She put makeup on Lydia, and while it was all happening, Lydia seemed to be I don't know if I want to do this. I'm not sure. And then she went along with it. But it turns out that at the end of this, she wasn't happy. And apparently Mariah actually had to make an apology to Lydia, both privately and publicly, for the scene, because she said that Lydia was actually really upset about this entire episode. And I don't know so much if it's that she's upset that her mom will see it, or if she's upset just because it's not in line with her beliefs. But this is what Mariah wrote on her Instagram. Hey, so this is my beautiful sister Lydia, who I'm very sure most of y'all know. She and I are complete opposites, and I wanted to apologize for something. No, she does not have social media, but I've already addressed this with her. On the episode tonight, we saw Lydia and I trying on outfits and having fun. Don't get me wrong, at the time it was very fun, but she came to me afterwards and said she was a little uncomfortable. I should have paid more attention to her feelings, and never do I want to force something on someone just because it's something I love or have a passion for. That doesn't mean it's right for them. I personally never want anyone forcing me to do anything just because it's their personal opinion or belief. And in order for this relationship to continue moving in the right direction, there has to be mutual respect on both ends of our different walks in life. And also there should be open discussions about how we're feeling and not be scared to hurt each other's feelings, because that's much better than shoving it down and both ending up more hurt in the end. And then she said, I love you, Lydia, and look forward to learning and laughing an awful lot with each other. And she said, but as always, we don't have it all figured out. We're just learning as we go. It's sweet that Mariah is apologizing and acknowledging that, just like her, not wanting to be forced to do anything, she doesn't want to force Lydia to do anything. And it's not clear where the status of their relationship is right now. Obviously, the fact that they had to speak about it privately tells me that this was something that was really weighing on Lydia's heart. And you start to wonder how much of this not only was pushed by Mariah, but maybe pushed by producers to try to get Lydia to sort of break that mold. Now, Micah said in last night's episode that he was a lot like Lydia at one point, and so he expects Lydia to branch out and to find herself too. And I think that's all that those siblings wanted of her, was to just help her find herself outside of her parents. I can see where Lydia would feel uncomfortable, and I do think that the kids in general just are very poor at communicating and talking about how they're feeling, because their parents literally don't talk about anything. So I'm glad that they talked about it. I'm not sure where they're at today. Now, in the episode as well, they went on to California. Olivia was spending time working on rebranding her business, and Ethan decided he wanted to meet up with her. And so they went around Los Angeles, and it's very clear how out of touch Ethan still is with the world. He was shocked by the way people dressed in Los Angeles. He was stunned by the fashion. He was overwhelmed by sort of all of the different walks of life that were out in Los Angeles. And he was very still, you can tell he's still incredibly sheltered. He was a pretty good sport. They went out and had some Japanese food, which neither one of them had any experience eating. They went out and got a massage, which, by the way, was interesting because it's new agey if you would think about it in terms of a conservative Christian. But they went out, got a massage. Ethan ultimately said he enjoyed it. Olivia said that she enjoyed it. They also had showed their matching tattoos off. They got matching king and queen tattoos on their wrists, or couples tattoos with Mariah and Micah. So overall, this is a family that I would say all of the different people are sort of going in different directions. Olivia and Ethan's relationship, I'm finding this season to be at a very big crossroads. There are times where I feel like Olivia is sort of 1 foot out the door in her relationship with Ethan, as though she feels as though he's sort of holding her back, as though she's maybe a little bit lost patience with his simplisticness and her maybe feeling a little bit more worldly than him. But I do know that they are working hard on it, and according to Olivia, they've been in counseling and are working on their marriage. So as these two are fighting for their marriage, Mariah is fighting for her, independence and her relationship. Micah wants to branch out and see the world. And then you have Lydia that's sort of stuck in the middle of all of this, wanting to please her mom, but also wanting to have a relationship with her siblings. So one thing I want to touch on is that in the last week's episode, they talked very briefly about Joshua Plath. This is something that the couple has talked about sort of from a very high level. I don't think they've really sort of discussed the ins and outs of what actually happened. And it's a terrible tragedy. And I think, it would be hard to push them to be completely open about something like this. You can tell it still deeply affects the family, and we'll be seeing a little bit more of the story next week. But back in 2008, Thomasville Times-Enterprise, which is a publication local to them, actually reported on what happened to Joshua, and this is what it says. Investigator Daniel Singletary said that Joshua Plath, 15 months old, passed away accidentally after his mother ran over him accidentally. He said the investigation is closed. The mother was pulling the vehicle forward. She had been doing yard work and thought she had accounted for all of the kids. She had 7 children, ages 15 months to 10 years old, and they were all outside playing. She thought everyone was accounted for, moved the vehicle forward, and discovered she had run over her youngest. The incident occurred at 5:15 p.m. They said that they went there and they saw her trying to administer CPR to her son. They took over as soon as they arrived, trying to save him, but they say the attempts at the time were unsuccessful and he was pronounced at the scene. They said the family does not wish to be interviewed about the tragic loss, and law enforcement officials are asking people to respect their privacy. He had a private funeral service. He's having a private funeral service, and it's going to take place today. This is what they said about this. This is the first death like this I've ever had to investigate. You try to separate yourself, but as a parent, it pulls at your heartstrings. There was no wrongdoing, no negligence that we could foresee. It was just a freak accident that occurred, and we don't believe we will be pursuing any charges. This was an unfortunate accident. We will pray for the family and hope they can get their lives back together. And then, according to his actual obituary, there's a little bit of there's some questions about his age, because his obituary actually says that he was 17 months old. So he is, according to police, 15 months old. His obituary says 17 months old. And sadly, this was definitely not something that she probably ever intended to happen. I can't imagine any mom, the pain that they must be going through. And a lot of people do wonder what kind of effect that it had on her, and whether or not that was contributed to her very strict mindset. Though she didn't get birth certificates or do hospital births for any of her kids after Ethan and Hosanna. So I don't know. She was probably on that track already with Josh before any of this happened to Joshua, being that he was the 7th child. So while it could have played a role in aspects of their lives moving after that, she was very much already on this sort of very strict lifestyle before this even happened. Next week, we are going to see Mariah and Micah go visit Joshua's gravesite. And, sadly, a lot of families go through things like this. So we'll definitely get an idea of how it affects the kids. Mariah and Micah will be sharing sort of their feelings about all of this in next week's episode. And she'll also be spending more time with Max. So what are your thoughts about all of this? Tell me them in the comments below. Bye, guys.